Hey, welcome back to YT Finance, and this is the channel where I went to business school so you didn't need to, and today we are talking about how Sofi Technologies can literally 20x. We're going to be going over the latest price targets for the SOFI stock, what analysts actually think of the future growth projections of this company, the latest stock news update, and we will perform our own stock analysis. For more updates on Sofi Technologies SOFI stock, remember to go and smash that like button right now, subscribe if you are new, comment your thoughts down below, and without further ado, let's jump right into today's stories. So I have gone over this multiple times, so listen to this. There's this one investor out there, and I'm not going to name names, but they say that Sofi Technologies is a hyper growth stock, and it's going to be the Amazon of finance. But let's see what else he says. He says that investors should buy SOFI stock, and if you didn't know, SOFI stock is a fintech company or a financial technology company that offers an all-in-one inclusive app that offers any product that someone would need in terms of finance. The author says that Sofi Technologies is an unrivaled leader in the fintech space, and they have fantastic competitive advantages. So up until this point, I am in agreement. It is a good growth stock. It could be a hyper growth stock. It may be the Amazon of finance. It's a good overall company that I personally own. Investors can buy it. It is a market leader in the fintech space. It has fantastic competitive advantages, but this is where we disagree. So in a previous article, I even did a video on this, and I showed the math that this particular author is using. He says that the SOFI stock can literally 10x in the next few years. Then in this article, he says that it can literally 17x your money in the next few years. And then in a more recent article, he says that it could not 10x, not 17x, but 20x your money. And to me, I think this is unreasonable, outrageous, and there is no fundamentals to back up this particular claim. Now, with that being said, I do think that SOFI is extremely competitive in the fintech and the financial services space. However, this sector is facing pressure with the increase in interest rates and geopolitical tensions going around in the world, but I do believe that Sofi Technologies will continue to expand and grow at breakneck speeds. However, I personally think that we should not be overly bullish, and a 5x for the SOFI stock in the next few years is much more reasonable than saying that the stock is going to 10x, 17x, or even 20x. I find these unjustified, unreasonable, and I think that people are just hyping up this stock for literally no reason, because that's how people really get hurt and lose money. Even a 5x, in my personal opinion, is a very bullish stance that I personally own, but again, that's the high end of bullish price prediction. We will go over actual price estimates and predictions that I think that they can achieve this year later in the video. So I just wanted to clarify for people, when they read very bullish articles saying that Sofi Technologies will be the next Amazon, or that it will 20x, that's not necessarily true. Now, can it be the next Amazon of finance? Sure, there's a potential for that. Can it potentially 20x? Well, yes, it can, depending on how many years we give the stock. But to mislead people saying that the company can 20x in just the next 2 to 3 years, or in the next few years, is really not that reasonable based off of current fundamentals, financials, and of course projections. So please, we need to be reasonable about stocks even if we are bullish on them. Again, like I said earlier, I love Sofi Technologies, I own Sofi Technologies, but I am not betting that the stock is going to 20x in the next couple of years. I think a 5x should be the most bullish price target, and anything above that we really don't have to pay attention to. However, with that being said, let's see what some analysts think about this company. So recently, a Morgan Stanley analyst who anticipated that the student loan moratorium would end as well as I did, has recently downgraded the SOFI stock to a hold instead of a buy rating. And the reason for this is because the student loan moratorium has frozen student loan payments, and analysts thought this would end sometime in March. But it's not. It has been pushed until May 1st, which is going to hurt some of their full year 2022 financial metrics, because a load of revenues for Sofi Technologies comes from their loan and refinancing segment. So this is not a good look for Sofi Technologies. And for this reason, that's why this particular analyst from Morgan Stanley, which is a highly respected institution, has downgraded their Sofi stock from a buy down to a hold rating. So far, the Biden administration has pushed back this moratorium ending multiple times, which is really hurting Sofi Technologies in a sense. However, if they end up eliminating student loans altogether, this will not hurt Sofi Technologies, so let me tell you why. Even if the student loan debt is 100% canceled and students no longer have to pay it, it just means that the government themselves will end up paying these debts off to their respected banks and loaners, even if it's refinanced through Sofi Technologies. So in this instance, Sofi Technologies will get the money that is owed to them, even if they totally cancel student loan payments. However, by pushing the student loan moratorium further and further back, this is negatively impacting SoFi Technologies' financial performance in the approaching quarters. Also, I want to highlight that some hedge funds, have been offloading some SoFi stock recently, and according to TipRank's hedge fund trading activity tool, we can see that hedge funds have sold around 8.1 million SoFi shares in the last quarter. So despite these near-market headwinds of the student loan moratorium being extended, as well as some hedge funds selling SoFi stock, I still believe that SoFi Technologies and the SoFi stock itself is still a fantastic long-term opportunity because their fundamentals are still very strong. And I base this off of their member growth as well as their overall product growth, which will positively be reflected in their overall revenue. So to me, SoFi Technologies is a good long-term growth stock, and a Jefferies analyst actually agrees with me. He says that SoFi stock is a strong momentum play right now, and they have a diversified revenue stream, which they plan on further diversifying into as time goes on. So right now, they primarily make the majority of their revenues from their loans and lending segment. However, they are trying to gain and diversify their revenues further into their other segments. And this leads the Jefferies analyst to have an SoFi stock price of around $20 per share, which would represent a 114% potential upside if we buy into the stock right now. According to analysts from Wall Street, SoFi stock has received 6 buy ratings from professionals and 6 hold ratings, while none of these analysts actually say to sell the stock. This would mean that the overall SoFi stock is a moderate buying opportunity right now, according to analysts, with the average SoFi stock price target being $16.85, which still would imply around 80.6% upside from its current levels. Right now, the SoFi stock price is trading between $9 and $10 per share, and this is exactly where we would want to buy the stock. Particularly, we would actually want to buy lower than this. However, because the low-end analyst price target is $10, ideally we would want to get in below $10 per share, so $9 or even lower. But by looking at the average price target, which is $16.85, and the high-end price target, which is $22, this provides us fantastic upside for the overall SoFi stock price. So there is still a good amount of upside for long-term investors in the stock, and we also have to remember that these all are actually only 1-year stock price predictions. That means we could experience around 80% upside just in the next 12 months, and that would be absolutely fantastic, which is why I am very bullish on the overall SoFi stock price. So even though we have near-term headwinds, overall in the long term, this company looks fantastic, and I can't wait to add more to this company. But as always, you all probably know that I don't allocate more than 5% of my portfolio to any single stock, because there are a plethora of fantastic companies out there to invest into. However, SoFi Technologies is one of my favorites. Also, I want to point out that SoFi Technologies has had ample insider buying activity. For instance, many insiders are buying the stock between $8 and $10. This would include a plethora of different insiders, directors, and even their CEO. For instance, just in the month of March, they bought thousands and tens of thousands of shares of SoFi Technologies. And from those initial purchases, these insiders, including the CEO, is up around 14% in a very short amount of time. Now, although there is multiple reasons why investors would sell stock of the company that they are currently operating, there is normally only one reason why insiders tend to buy stock of the company that they're operating, and that is that they believe that the stock price will go up. So insider buying and insider activity is very positive right now. Over the last 12 months, insiders have bought around 405.5 million shares of SoFi Technologies, with around 181 million of those shares being sold. However, that would still equate to a net of around 224 million shares being bought over the last 12 months, which is extremely bullish. This should signal retail investors to buy around these same price points that the insiders are buying at, because clearly these insiders think that the company's stock is worth more than what the company is currently trading at. And to me, I think this speaks absolute volumes about the future potential of SoFi Technologies, and it also signals that we should start buying this stock right now. However, always make sure to do your own research to make sure that SoFi Technologies fits into your portfolio, and remember proper risk management. I also want to say that although some hedge funds are selling SoFi Technologies, there are various institutions that are buying up SoFi SoFi Technologies stock as well. For instance, according to Whale Wisdom, which tracks 13F filers, around 427 funds own SoFi stock, which actually is an increase by around 127 funds from the previous quarter. So clearly this signifies that more institutions are buying up SoFi stock. However, these institutions are also hedging their bets because the current institutional put-to-call ratios lie at around 1.38, and this means that funds are actually buying put options, which means that they are betting that the stock price will fall in the next couple of months or however long they put that contract for. However, this doesn't mean that the companies don't believe in the long-term value of SoFi stock. It just means that they are hedging their bets over the long term with put options. So because they bought these shares, it means that they are long on this company, but due to current market headwinds, they are actually going to play off of the volatility of this stock and hedge their bets in the short term by buying put options. I also want to mention that around 180 new funds have actually initiated new positions in SoFi Technology stocks. However, on the flip side, 50 funds have completely liquidated their entire SoFi stock position. This would still equate to around a 130 new fund net, which is very, very good. And these are not small institutions that are buying these companies. We have mega companies such as SoftBank Group, which bought around 117.8 million shares, which means they own around 14.59% of the overall company. Vanguard Group owns around 53.4 million shares, which means they have around 6.61% ownership of the company. Red Crow Capital has around 42.6 million shares, which represents an ownership of around 5.28%. T. Rowe Price also has around 35.3 million shares of SoFi stock, which means they have ownership of around 4.3% of the company. And Silver Lake Group has around 31.2 million shares, or 3.86% ownership of the company. Overall, this is very strong institutional backing, and this is why I have almost maxed out my SoFi stock allocation to my portfolio, because I don't allocate more than 5% of a particular stock inside of my overall portfolio, because that's proper risk management. I also did a video on why I am buying more SoFi stock, and it's good reason, because I am not alone. Insiders are buying this company. New funds are buying this company, and the funds that already consist of ownership in SoFi Technologies are also buying more stock. However, this news is extremely bullish, so let's see what the bears think about this company. Let's go over some bad news. Well, bears, naysayers, and critics of SoFi Technologies will point out that the company's fundamentals have actually worsened when compared to the time that the company originally went public on the open market. Secondly, they say that macroeconomic factors are weighing down on the stock, and that's why the SoFi stock price is going to continue to trend downward, because this broader shift to digital financial services by American consumers have actually slowed down and started to deteriorate, which will hurt SoFi Technologies' bottom line. Now, what I find fascinating is that both of these statements are blatantly false, and even this author from Seeking Alpha actually agrees with me and echoes that none of these are true. The company's fundamentals are either the same, if not better, because they have had fantastic earnings reports. Also, the macroeconomic backdrop I can understand, but to say that's the reason that American consumers are deteriorating and falling away from digital financial services is not true. Americans and consumers have actually increased their adoption of digital financial services regardless about the macroeconomic backdrop. So both of these are unequivocally false, and we even have data charts and information to prove this particular point. Also, another reason why I think SoFi Technologies is a good buying opportunity is that it's trading at around a 63% discount from its all-time highs. So please be aware of that. I also want to say that their total revenues came in for the year of 2021 just over $1 billion, which represents around a 63% increase from the fiscal year of 2020. So as we see, we have actually increased revenue by around 63% compared to 2020. However, the stock price has fallen around 63% from their all-time highs. So as you can see, these numbers are not adding up to one another, and if anything, we should see the stock price start to appreciate as time goes on. We also see this in the adoption, so their overall member growth is growing at a fantastic rate, and that's exactly what I want to see. And this membership growth actually disproves what the bears and critics are saying, that Americans are not adopting the digital app that SoFi Technologies has released. If anything, this chart actually shows that the adoption is increasing as time goes on, and it is not decreasing decreasing. So clearly we have data that disproves a lot of what the critics and bears are saying. They are just naysayers about SoFi Technologies, and they really don't want to talk facts or data, because the data clearly shows that the membership and the adoption of their app and their financial services and institutions and products are actually increasing. And not just for SoFi Technologies, it's increasing across the board. Also, with its current market cap of around $7.7 billion, the company trades for around 7.7 times its fiscal 2021 revenues. However, their projections for their revenues in 2022 says that the company could bring in around $1.57 billion, which means that the company's forward PS multiple is only 4.9 times, and this is almost unheard of for a growth stock of SoFi Technologies' stature. This is absolutely fantastic, which is why I personally am extremely bullish on SoFi Technologies. We can also see that SoFi Technologies has unparalleled growth in the premium that they are achieving from their financial services. Their adjusted net revenues for their premium financial services are growing at a compounding annual growth rate of around 43% if we compare it to the baseline of what they were bringing in back in 2020. This is going to see revenues further increase to around $3.67 billion for the year of 2025. However, the author of this article, as well as myself, thinks that SoFi Technologies could actually achieve around $4 billion for the year of 2025. However, that is just speculation based on our current projections and the CAGR and compounding annual growth rate, but we will actually need to see the actuals when 2025 comes. But regardless, even if we take the more conservative estimate of around $3.67 billion, that is an astonishing compounding annual growth rate of 43%, and that is extremely impressive. Any company that can consistently achieve a compounding annual growth rate regarding their revenues of over 30% is very, very good. For instance, Palantir Technologies has a 30% CAGR for their revenues from now until 2025, but clearly SoFi Technologies is actually anticipated to scale even more than that, and that is extremely impressive. This means that if you buy into SoFi Technologies, I would say that holding for a minimum of 3 years is going to be ideal. However, I personally plan to hold around 5 to 10 years, because the longer you hold a stock like this, the more stock price appreciation and growth we could achieve from this overall company. It's going to take a little while for SoFi Technologies to be fully valued in the eyes of investors, which means that if we can average our average cost down to at or below $10 per share, or even buy SoFi Technologies, or even initiate a buy for SoFi Technologies or the SOFI stock below $10, that is going to be absolutely ideal for a medium to long-term hold. I also believe that SoFi Technologies will continuously grow their revenues, they will diversify their revenue channels, and eventually the company is going to achieve profitability here soon. And these are all very good bullish catalysts that are coming up for the company in the next couple of years. But I would love to hear your thoughts down below. Remember to go and smash that like button right now, comment your thoughts down below about this news, subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you in the next YT video.